West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire.
The midterms are just around the corner, and Republicans are ready for payback if they win control of either branch of the Congress. Axios is reporting that top Republican aides have met with a group of conservative think tanks like the Heritage Foundation to prep for a slew of probes into the Biden administration. Mike Howell, who leads Heritage's oversight project, told Axios, quote, "You've got to do 4 years of oversight in 2 years. That's going to be an immense lift, and it means that they cannot wait to get these committees situated. There are thousands of people who served in the Trump administration, myself included, who experienced what was probably the most intense congressional oversight to date. They are chomping, it should be champing, but they are chomping at the bit to deploy these skills that they've learned back at the Biden administration." This is in line with previous reporting that some Republicans are gearing up to lead a barrage of aggressive inquiries once in power. So, basically, they're petty, angry, and ready to spend our tax dollars on mess like this. Back with me is Daniel Goldman, former lead counsel of the first Trump impeachment inquiry and New York congressional candidate, and Kurt Bardella. Kurt, I've just given you a new nickname, Curdy B. Advisor to the DNC and DCCC and former spokesperson for the House Oversight Committee. All right, Curdy B. As the former communications person for the House Oversight Committee, for Republicans, you know how this is going to go down. How bad is it going to be for the Biden administration if Republicans take back the House and Republicans control the Oversight Committee?
Well, listen, Jonathan, I was there the last time we had a changeover in power going from Democrat to Republican rule with an opposition party in the White House, and we saw how Republicans used the reins of power to basically hit a wrecking ball on the Obama administration's agenda and suck up all of the oxygen with hundreds of subpoenas, hearings every week. It was a nonstop show that led to things like Fast and Furious with Attorney General Eric Holder being held in contempt of Congress. Things like the Benghazi investigation that would last for 6 years and culminate with Hillary Clinton having to testify before the Select Committee for more than 11 hours. They know exactly what they're doing. The difference between Republicans and Democrats, I feel like, having now been on both sides of this, is that Republicans are never reluctant to use the power that they have and to wield it over the opposition party. Democrats at times seem almost hesitant, reluctant to do the same thing, and Republicans are getting ready to unleash an investigative tsunami on the Biden administration. They're going to go after Hunter Biden. They're going to go after cabinet secretaries. They're going to go after every single dollar that was used in the infrastructure bill to try to cripple and paralyze the Biden administration, to effectively end the Biden administration prematurely by using exaggerated clickbait nonsense to launch investigation after investigation, witch hunt after witch hunt against the Democrats in the White House and really tie up the entire agenda and the media atmosphere.
And Daniel, on that point about how, to Kurt's point about Democrats are just basically going to have to, adopt some of the tactics that Republicans use by being a little more aggressive about fighting these things. But, Democrats, they play by the rules and they don't want to shake things up. But do you think Democrats should do what Republicans do, defy subpoenas, say, in essence, well, screw you, we don't care, we don't find you legitimate? Should Democrats do that?
Well, Jonathan, you raise a good point. Kurt raises a really good point. I mean, it's part of the reason I'm running for Congress is that the Democrats need to be tougher. They need to be more aggressive. They need to understand that Republicans are bad actors. They are operating in bad faith. The quaint notions of meeting in the Capitol cafeteria to hash out legislation or to hash out, progress, that's over. The Republicans are a wrecking ball. They're just trying to destroy our fundamental rights, our democracy. And so the Democrats absolutely need to get tougher. I laugh at that quote saying that the Trump administration suffered the most intensive congressional oversight.
You wonder why.
I was there. They flouted subpoena after subpoena after subpoena in a way that had never been done before. Now, it's going to be tricky because Democrats do believe in the rule of law. Democrats do believe in separation of powers. And so Democrats are not just going to defy all subpoenas as Donald Trump publicly said he would do. Now, in the impeachment investigation, we were able to sort of break through that logjam, but very little else was able to be accomplished. And so the Biden administration and the Democrats in Congress are going to have to play tougher hardball. And the Republican congressmen are putting themselves in a bit of a pickle because they themselves have flouted congressional subpoenas. So talk about the height of hypocrisy when they're now going to complain if other people flout the same subpoenas that they flouted in the January 6th committee.
Now, okay, so Kurt, so here's the thing, right? Democrats need to play tougher hardball, as Daniel says, and do what Republicans did. But here's the thing, to your point, Republicans are ruthless. So Republicans defy subpoenas that come from Democrats. Democrats had the power to go send folks out to arrest them, right? Are we looking at the possibility that Republicans, if a Democrat decides to defy a subpoena, that they will send the police out and arrest them, that they will ratchet it up because they would have the power to do so?
Let's be very clear here, Jonathan. There is no measure that Republicans in power would not embrace if it achieved their means. This is a political party that has decided that it is okay to ransack the Capitol and overturn a free and fair election. Once you've crossed that threshold as a party and you label those domestic terrorists as patriots, you're willing to do just about anything. And this is why, going back to what Daniel was just talking about, Democrats are going to have to get tough here. And when you look at just how we measure up, when you have right now the two leading Democrats in the oversight space, Jerry Nadler, Karen Maloney, how are they going to match up if they're on the other side of this with a Jim Jordan, with a Jim Banks, with some of these crazy Republicans that we have seen, how they turn congressional hearings into theater, how they interrupt, how they badger, what their rhetorical tools are? I think that Democrats are going to have to take a serious look at who they're going to elevate to offset these Republicans. Look at people like Jamie Raskin. Look at some of the people who served in the impeachment of Donald J. Trump. Both of them, as a matter of fact. They're going to have to match up because this becomes a messaging war. This was something that Democrats recognized a little bit when Obama was the president. They elevated Elijah Cummings, the late great Elijah Cummings, to be the lead oversight Democrat because they knew they needed a forceful public speaker who understood communications, who understood messaging, who had that gravitas, who could go toe-to-toe with people like, at the time, Darrell Issa, Jim Jordan, Mark Meadows, Mike Pompeo, all those Republicans who badgered Obama. Well, look where a lot of those Republicans are now. They're in key leadership positions, so it's going to be crucial. It's going to be vital that if this scenario happens and Republicans take back power, that Democrats match up on the dais.
It is Monday, the 6th of June of 2022. and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner the English Bulldog is our snoozing sous chef, and our daily special is River City Hash Mondays. Yeah, it's another one of those weekends, and when I say another one of those weekends, it's sort of like how the rest of the week is like now. A mass shooting every single day. All right, well, I guess the only solution to that is to give people more guns so we have more mass shootings, and I don't know what the end result is, though I suspect they have a plan. It might not just be to get rid of public education, though that's a nice little step along the way, isn't it? Yeah, you can't have public education if you want utter chaos, so that the fascisti can step in and save the day. Yeah, we've seen this dynamic a few times before, and it always is with the goose steppers. The goose steppers think they can goose step right on in and save the day. Yeah, they're not there to save the day. Seize it, throttle it, choke it off, maybe. All right. I was wondering, there were certain aspects about the Nazis that you don't necessarily see in today's maggot Nazi. And I would say that the vast theft of artwork, we haven't really seen that. Now, of course, what will happen. Artwork and whatnot will be seized, but it'll just be burned. It won't be hung on the walls of the maggot elite. I don't think so. Though one might find it here and there. Though not on the scale that the Nazis looted that way, among other things. I mean, they were looters. But I suspect since there's a grift going on, the grifters might organize themselves into a grift machine and a little bit more diversified than the grift machine that they are running now. And it might include the vast theft of artwork. All right. I don't see any great architects in the maggot Nazis, making all these edifices to maggot world. Of course, they do have what they consider artists and architects. That McNaughton guy, though, I got to tell you, I wouldn't necessarily call that art. Okay, it's drawing, maybe painting, maybe. It doesn't really get elevated to art, but I believe that is what they being the maggot Nazis, will accept. No more Kaczynski. No more Hopper. No. No more Diebenkorn. None of that. Definitely not Picasso. Deaf. But we'll have McNaughton paint by number fascist paintings. Hanging in all the fine homes, too. Well, enough of that rigmarole. Why don't we get into what we have in store for you in the Bistro Cafe part as we begin this fabulous River City Hash Mondays? Well, at the top, yes, from Bill Clinton through Obama and until this very day, the GOP put the P in petty, payback, and probes. I love how they're threatening us. If you try to investigate us, well, wait till we have power. Well, wait a second. Even when you don't have power, you're gumming up the works. Every single week there was an investigation, a hearing into Obama's, he was trying to pass health care for people, and apparently that was just a bridge too far. He's legislating? Oh, no! And then we elected him twice, and they said there would be repercussions for electing the black guy. And then we elected him twice. All right. So when they threaten us about what they're going to do, it's going to be the same old, same old. All right? So we might as well not worry about it. Punch the Nazis Now. Oh, I forgot to mention, happy Punch the Nazis Day. This was D-Day when we went to Normandy to punch the Nazis. And we should celebrate it. On the rest of the menu, students of color push back on calls for more police in schools. In fact, they're pushing back on the fact that there are police in schools, and I have to, since they first started putting cops in schools right after I graduated. Abortion rights advocates say they need more men's voices, and that's true. So, guys, speak up. And a New Orleans Starbucks store is the first in Louisiana to vote union. Union strong, too. After the break, we move to the chef's table where NATO kicked off a nearly 2-week Baltic Sea naval exercise with Finland and Sweden. And Australia charged China for threatening one of its maritime planes over the South China Sea. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com. To the right of the page is the chat room link, and the chat room is monitored by Kelly Lincoln, as you know, and if you don't, it is. Thank you, Kelly. To the left across the page from the chat room link near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com is the link to our Patreon page, and if you could afford an espresso-type coffee drink, and if you could afford to send those funds to us once a month, we're able to stretch those dollars and pay our bills, fly under the radar, and continue this powerhouse of resistance against the dark forces arrayed against not only the United States of America, but representative democracy around the world. And I'm not kidding. There is a concerted effort to get rid of us, the people. At least our choices and our autonomy to live as individuals, making choices for all of us. Can't have it. They only like it when they can tell us what to do, not when we, tell them, this is what we voted for. Okay? Anyway, if you could afford to send those funds to us once a month, we are then able to pay our bills, fly under the radar, and continue this powerhouse of resistance. So thank you for your generosity, those of you who have helped so far. And thank you in advance to those of you who might help us in the future, near future. Thank you. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, do so at Netroots Radio. Tom takes care of that. I'll get my mouth working. It's Monday. And thank you, Tom. Follow me on Twitter at Justice Putnam. I post the show notes and links diary on Daily Codes about 10 minutes before showtime. That's automatic, as long as I put in the time and put it in queue. But anyway, that comes up 10 minutes before showtime, and then I really try to get it linked up on social media platforms like Twitter. But sometimes it's when the podcast comes out, so you can find the show notes and links generally, at least the page where you can find the daily show notes and links, by going to my Twitter feed at Justice Putnam, and then that will direct you to Daily Codes, and there's those show notes and links, and that's where the real reportage is. All right. You can also follow the show on Twitter at Cookbook West, and please do pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, etc., etc., etc. And, of course, now the deep archive of the Netroots Radio Library from the past 11 years can be found at the Internet Archive at archive.org. All right. This first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, River City Hash Mondays, is out of the Associated Press by Annie Ma. After the mass shooting at a Texas elementary school, schools around the country pledged to boost security measures and increase the presence of law enforcement on campus, partly to reassure parents and students. But police inside schools can make some students more uneasy, not less, especially for black students and other students of color. Their personal experiences with policing can leave them feeling unsafe and alienated from school when they see officers on campus. Well, heck, when the cops on campus are handcuffing little 6-year-olds, and it looks like only because they're black, I think that maybe there might be a problem. We didn't come up with the school-to-prison pipeline from nothing, did we? We never heard about it until they started putting... They can't even call them cops. They call them resource officers. Like, they're supposed to be guidance counselors. In fact, they fired the guidance counselors, the ones that helped you make sure that you had all the prerequisites needed to get into college and become a productive citizen of the United States of America. They got rid of those and installed the cops instead. And then they don't even call them cops. They call them resource officers. Like they were a resource for what? All right. Police officers have a regular presence at schools across the country in recent decades. Do you think? They started doing it back in the mid-'70s, just about the time I got out of high school. All right. Often in the form of school resource officers who are tasked with building relationships with young people to promote trust of law enforcement, providing security, and enforcing laws. Not about getting into college and becoming a productive citizen of the United States of America. No, they want you to comply. And you're going to learn it at school from the resource officer. Critics say having armed police on campus often results in black students being disproportionately arrested and punished, leading to what they call the school-to-prison pipeline. Researchers have found that black students report feeling less safe around police officers than their white peers, and that officers in predominantly black school districts were more likely to view the students themselves to be threats. Be honest with you, I haven't met a cop yet who didn't think that a citizen was not a threat. They have a little club, you know. It's almost like a gang. And they have colors to denote what gang they're in. Well, it all shows all the physical harms that young people experience by police. It is Catherine Dunn, director of the Opportunity to Learn program at the Advancement Project. It's also the experience of being degraded and made to feel like a criminal because you have to walk down the hallway to your class with several armed guards who are not there for your safety, who you see arrest your friends and assault your friends. In 2018, after the mass shooting at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, the state legislature passed laws mandating public schools to have either law enforcement or armed personnel present on campus. A study of the law's impact by F. Chris Curran, a University of Florida professor, found, though, that the expanded police presence was followed by an increase in school arrests and the number of reported behavioral incidents. He said there are many factors to consider in deciding the role police play in schools. While there are examples of school resource officers who have intervened in incidents of gun violence, Curran said, the presence of law enforcement does not always guarantee that shootings or other violence won't occur, or that the officer would be immediately effective at stopping the perpetrator and minimizing casualties. In fact, studies show that if there's a resource officer on a campus, that campus is more likely to be attacked by a mass shooter. Now, of course, knowing that and what we know about the repugs, that's a feature, not a bug. Deepti Hajila of the Associated Press brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. If Donovan Atterbury thought about abortion at all as a young man, it was perhaps with some vague discomfort or a memory of the anti-abortion protesters outside the clinic that he would pass on his way to the park as a child. It became real to him in 2013 when his girlfriend, now his wife, became pregnant with their first child together. She had a healthy pregnancy before with his stepdaughter, but this time genetic testing found a lethal chromosomal disorder in the developing fetus, one that would likely result in a stillbirth and possibly put his wife's life at risk during the delivery. As a man, I did not know how to console her, how to advise her, Atterbury, now age 32, recalls. I said if I had to choose, I would choose you. It wasn't a matter of fact of do I believe in abortion or don't believe in abortion. At that point, I was thinking about her life. She chose to terminate the pregnancy, and it changed my whole perspective on bodily autonomy and things of that nature, said Atterbury. So much so that he now works as a voting engagement organizer for New Voices for Reproductive Justice, which focuses on the health of black women and girls with abortion access among the chief areas of concern. What I'm trying to convey is that it is a human right for someone to have a choice, he said. That Atterbury is a man of support in abortion rights is not unusual, according to polls. A majority of men in America say they support some level of access to abortion, and history is replete with men who have played active roles in supporting abortion through organizations, as legislators, and in the case of Dr. George Tiller, as an abortion provider. Tiller was assassinated in church by an anti-abortion extremist in Kansas in 2009, of course, after the right-wing media, predominantly Fox, put a target on his back and called him Tiller the Baby Killer. Still, there is a room for a lot more who are willing to speak out and be active in the political battles over abortion availability, Atterbury says. Where men have always played an outsized role is in pushing for and enacting abortion restrictions. As advocates, state elected officials, and most recently as a Supreme Court justice. Samuel Alito authored a draft of a high court ruling that would overturn the 73 Roe v. Wade decision establishing a nationwide right to abortion. The draft, which was leaked to a news outlet last month, appears to have the support of the majority of the 6 men sitting on the 9-justice court. And women have always taken the lead in the fight to preserve abortion rights for obvious reasons. They are the ones who give birth and who, in so many instances, are tasked with caring for children once they are brought into the world, let alone sometimes it's their lives. Men should not be out there trying to run the movement or take away leadership positions, Atterbury said, but being a part of it, supporting, listening, and being active are all things that men can and should be doing. Staff from the Associated Press bring us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy River City Hash Mondays. Employees at a Starbucks store in New Orleans voted to form a union, becoming the first of the coffee giant's locations in Louisiana to unionize. Ballots were cast on Friday and Saturday 11-1 in favor of joining Workers United, which represents the unionized Starbucks stores. 2 ballots were challenged. The New Orleans vote is the latest in a series of wins for labor at Starbucks stores across the nation and comes about a week after workers in Birmingham, Alabama voted 27-1 to become that state's first unionized Starbucks. Barista Caitlin Pierce and others wanted to unionize because of regular shifts where they were overworked and understaffed. "I'm feeling amazing," Pierce said. "There is something we worked so hard for, and it's just great to finally get here." Starbucks has fought unionization efforts, saying its 9,000 company-owned U.S. stores function best when Starbucks works directly with employees, which the company calls partners. Yeah, that's one way of getting around it. In a statement yesterday, Sunday, Starbucks said it was listening and learning, and added, "We respect our partners' right to unionize." The statement did not say whether the company would challenge the vote, but you know they will. Bill Nix, lead organizer of the union campaign, was fired in mid-May for closing the store early without permission from higher management. Nix is contesting the dismissal, saying it was in retaliation for union advocacy. Nix said they will meet with their lawyer and gather those still working at the store to solidify specific demands for the contract negotiations. To win the changes they seek, like better pay and more reliable schedules, unionized stores must still sit down with Starbucks and negotiate a contract. It's a painstaking process that can take years. Starbucks in Buffalo, New York, became the first in the United States to unionize late last year. Based in Seattle, the company has more than 34,000 stores worldwide. All right, let's get to our break, and when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we've curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Clinton Johnston. This week, my call sign is Sherman. I'll give you a hint for that reference later. One of the many things that's interesting to me about Top Gun Maverick is how much Tom Cruise, director Joseph Kosinski, and producer Jerry Bruckheimer have succeeded in making an 80s film. And I'm not just talking about how the movie starts with Kenny Loggins' Danger Zone and follows with a bunch of diegetic 80s tunes until Maverick gets his groove back. That's just the start. Many 80s movies featured the middle-aged white American male dealing with his social, professional, familial, racial, national, and sexual primacy being threatened. Where Maverick doesn't re-explore this dynamic, it does present our hero as a victim of a world that's passed him by. Where's the place for a fighter pilot in an age of drones? He's still a captain because he breaks too many rules and wants to be Top Gun and not Top Brass, which brings up another point. Maverick is a familiar character type from the 80s and truly before and beyond. He's the rebel. His call sign is Maverick after all. But what type of rebel? Maverick doesn't want to quit the Navy or stop its missions. He ain't taking no knee. He doesn't rebel against the system. He's a rebel within the system, against its rules and oversight brought to bear by narrow, misfocused managers keeping highly motivated hotshots like Maverick from supporting the system with their initiative and talent. So systemically safe, this rebel. Next 80s point. Today, we have a fake-it-till-you-make-it imposter syndrome society, but the Navy fighter pilot world is not having it. No, you take your God-given gifts and you train, study, compete, work, compete again to get what it takes, and if you fail, you feel bad about blowing the mission and letting everyone down. And in our final look through the Top Gun Maverick Wayback Machine, Kelly McGillis is passed up for Jennifer Connelly, who had more testosterone in this film than I do, playing essentially the same role, because in the 80s, love interest actresses never come back for the sequel. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Clinton Johnston. Catch up with us at TakeTwoMovieReview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
This is Scientific American's 60-Second Science. I'm Karen Hopkin. Climate change. It's the culprit behind an increase in droughts and floods, wildfires and storms. And a new study shows that it's making more meerkats come down with tuberculosis. The findings appear in the journal Nature Climate Change.
So tuberculosis is an endemic disease in meerkats. It has been present in the population since the meerkats have been studied.
Maria Panif is a researcher at the Doñana Biological Research Station in Spain. She says that for meerkats living in the Kalahari, TB outbreaks have been on the rise. Coincidentally, so have the local temperatures.
So we wanted to know whether there was a link between climate change, which has been increasing temperature extremes, and increases in tuberculosis outbreaks, and how this may affect population of this social species.
So Panif and her colleagues crunched the numbers.
I was very fortunate to collaborate with the Kalahari Meerkat Project, which is a fantastic project where we now have over 22 years of very detailed data on individual meerkats and about their survival, their reproduction, their growth, their movement, and so on. So it's a very rich data set to work with.
They use the data to build models to predict how climate change will affect meerkat populations.
Our main results show that climate change affects meerkats primarily by increasing the likelihood of deadly TB outbreaks.
And according to the model, it can do so in two ways.
First, extremely hot years increase physiological stress on meerkats because meerkats, need to hide from the extreme heat. They do not have enough time to search for food. And extreme heat may also be associated with very low rainfall and therefore drought, so little food availability.
That stress increases the probability that an endemic disease will turn into an outbreak that can completely wipe out meerkat populations, with the extinction risk for local groups predicted to double over the next dozen years.
And the other way is that climate change also sort of destabilizes local groups and makes male meerkats much more mobile.
Meerkats live in social groups, from which males normally disperse to find mates. And when it's warmer, males are much more likely to hit the road.
And with that, they carry a disease, they carry tuberculosis with them. And by moving around so much, they spread disease between meerkat groups, which again increases the chances or the risk of severe outbreaks.
And Panif says it's not merely meerkats that should be concerned about the climate.
This finding is particularly interesting and important because tuberculosis is a very widespread disease which affects many species, including livestock that is quite important for humans.
Yet another way that climate change could land us all in hot water. For Scientific American's 60-Second Science, I'm Karen Hopkin.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Welcome to A Cup of Health with CDC, a weekly feature of the MMWR, the Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Report. I'm your host, Dr. Kathleen Dooling. Occasional aches and pains are an expected part of life, but for many people, pain is a constant companion. Dr. Chad Helmick is with CDC's National Center for Chronic Disease Prevention and Health Promotion. He's joining us today to discuss ways to manage chronic pain. Welcome to the show, Chad.
Thank you.
Chad, how many people in the U.S. suffer from chronic pain?
In 2016, 50 million adults had chronic pain, which is pain on most or every day in the past 6 months. More interesting, though, is that 20 million people have high-impact chronic pain, which is chronic pain that also limits their work or life activities on most or every day in the past 6 months. This is a problem because chronic pain is associated not only with symptoms, but with anxiety and depression, reduced quality of life, and the risk of opioid problems.
What are the most common causes of chronic pain?
The most common causes generally relate to bones and joints, like low back pain and arthritis, but there are many other causes: headaches, sickle cell disease, fibromyalgia, surgery and injuries, and many, many others.
Is chronic pain more common in any particular group of people?
Yes, it occurs at all ages, but it's more common in older middle-aged adults and in the oldest 85 and older. It's also more common in women, poor people, and those who live in rural areas.
How is chronic pain treated?
Well, the first thing to do is to get a diagnosis, which can help guide treatment. But the thinking about chronic pain now is that it becomes a chronic disease by itself, regardless of the cause, and that can cause significant problems. The real goal in management is to have a manageable level of pain, not to get rid of all pain. There's several steps that can be taken, and these are sometimes difficult to do because of barriers to access. But it makes sense to do the simplest and safest things first. And these are non-drug steps. Things like physical activity. Walking is perfectly good to help reduce pain. Also, self-management education can give you some confidence in managing chronic pain when you're on your own. There's also physical therapy, occupational therapy, psychological therapy, better sleep, which usually means less alcohol, and seeing a chiropractor or getting biofeedback and massage. If that's not enough, non-opioid drugs like Tylenol or Motrin and Advil or naproxen or Aleve can help. If those don't work, then it's time to consider something stronger. Sometimes that's opioids, but there's not great evidence that opioids are good for long-term pain in most people.
Do you have any advice for people suffering from chronic pain?
Well, it's important to work with a variety of providers who are working together to help you. The goal, again, is manageable pain so you can live a productive life. This can include physical therapy, most people can walk, to treat any underlying depression or anxiety, and to avoid further injuries. Finally, the National Pain Strategy is laying out a strategic roadmap to improve pain management system in this country.
Where can listeners get more information about managing chronic pain?
Listeners can go to the NIH website, nih.gov, and type in National Pain Strategy.
Thanks, Chad. I've been talking today with Dr. Chad Helmick about ways to manage chronic pain. If you're experiencing daily pain, talk with your healthcare provider to ensure you have the correct diagnosis and know how to manage your condition. Until next time, be well. This is Dr. Kathleen Dooling for A Cup of Health with CDC.
For the most accurate health information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
Wouldn't it be great if life came with a remote control? You know, you could hit pause when you needed to, or hit rewind, like that time you knocked down that wasp's nest. Uh-oh. Or that time you forgot to roll up your windows in the car wash.
Fantastic.
Yeah, a remote control would have come in handy then. Well, life doesn't always give you time to change the outcome, but prediabetes does. With early diagnosis and a few healthy changes like managing your weight, getting active, stopping smoking, and eating healthier, you can stop prediabetes before it leads to type 2 diabetes. It's easy to learn your risk. Take the 1-minute test today at doihaveprediabetes.org. Life doesn't come with a remote control. Yikes! So you're on your own with the wasps. You have the power to take control of prediabetes. Visit doihaveprediabetes.org today. That's doihaveprediabetes.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and its Prediabetes Awareness Partners.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
Usurping the fundamental rights of women to control their own bodies, authorizing corporate giants to buy our elections, nullifying the rights of organizers to talk to workers about unionizing. Who is rigging America's legal system against workaday people? The Supreme Court's right-wing extremists, that's who. just a handful of aloof, unelected judges have been turning what's supposed to be a citadel of justice into an unrestrained political instrument for instituting autocratic, plutocratic, theocratic power over us. If that sounds like a coup, it is. A slow-motion power grab has quietly been underway for years, with a core group of corporate billionaires and far right-wing political operatives working with practically no media exposure to stack federal and state courts with partisan activists. There's even a smoking gun revealing this plot, a confidential memo to the Chamber of Commerce, written in 1971 by Lewis Powell, a corporate lawyer and consigliere for Big Tobacco. Powell lamented that corporate citizens like tobacco giants do not have enough power over the nation's political system. That was absurd, of course, but Powell was dead set on returning America to pre-New Deal days when corporate barons were the supreme domineering force over America's government, economy, and society. To get there, Powell's memo noted that, quote, with an activist-minded Supreme Court, the judiciary may be the most important instrument for social, economic, and political change, by which he meant structural changes that empower moneyed interests. Just 2 months after Powell sent his memo, President Nixon awarded him a seat on the Supreme Court. This is Jim Hightower saying, after decades of political maneuvering by ideologues, billionaires, and front groups, we now have the Supreme Court corporations want. Powell's memo has literally come to life.
If you'd like more of Jim Hightower's real populism, check out the Hightower Lowdown. Jim's monthly newsletter gives you the real lowdown on which corporations, by name, are doing what to the middle class, our environment, and our democracy. Each month, the Hightower Lowdown brings you facts you didn't know, along with actions you can take to fight back. It also comes with a sense of humor. Hightower believes we can fight the gods and still have fun. Plus, get this, it's cheap. Only $15 brings you 12 issues a year. For real populism, go to hightowerlowdown.org.
Welcome to 60 Second Civics from the Center for Civic Education. I'm Mark Gage. We're joined once again today by a very special guest, Justice Paula Nakayama, an Associate Justice on the Hawaii Supreme Court. Justice Nakayama, why should young people consider a career in public service?
When you are a public servant, it is important to realize that you are indeed serving the public. I think about that all the time, and I consider it a higher calling. It's an honor and a privilege to be allowed to serve my fellow citizens, and I never forget that. Because you are involved with government also, you can effect change from within, and it can be very, very gratifying.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Justice Nakayama. That's all for today's podcast.
Why was there bacon on the fish sandwich?
Listen up. This matters. I'm Louis Black, and this is the Civil Liberties Minute with ACLU attorney Bill Newman.
Workers at a McDonald's in Chicopee, Massachusetts, allegedly intentionally put bacon on a fish sandwich that a Muslim woman had ordered for one of her children. This, according to a complaint recently filed on behalf of the woman by CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations, at the Massachusetts Commission Against Discrimination. The complaint states, it is commonly known that Islam forbids Muslims from eating pork, and McDonald's willfully added bacon to the complainant's food in an effort to offend, humiliate, and cause distress to complainant and her young children. The mom who bought the sandwich said, McDonald's made my children and me feel unwanted and worthless by intentionally stuffing a fish sandwich full of bacon for no reason other than to punish us for our faith and religious convictions. The mom continued, my children now wonder if they are welcome in their own country. They ask, do they hate us? How is a mother supposed to answer that question? The attorney for CARE added, religious discrimination at a place of public accommodation not only is illegal, but morally reprehensible. The mother's question is poignant, and the attorney's statement is correct.
The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the American Civil Liberties Union because freedom can't defend itself.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1988. That was the day that between 2 and 3 million black workers went on strike in South Africa. The Congress of South African Trade Unions had called for 3 days of national peaceful protests. For 2 years, the government had declared a state of emergency. The emergency was used as an excuse to raid black trade unionists' office and jail union leaders. In early 1988, new legislation was proposed to weaken strikes and sympathy strikes and even hold unions financially liable for a company's earnings losses during work stoppages. The government also was cracking down against those who dared to speak out against the repressive apartheid system. The black trade unionists planned the Stay Away, as the action was called, to protest these tactics of their government. Workers ground work to a halt in many of the nation's major cities. Nearly empty trains arrived in the nation's largest city, Johannesburg. It is estimated that nearly 2/3 of black workers in these cities participated in the action. One group that did not participate were miners. Millions of miners had gone out on strike less than a year before. To drum up support for the Stay Away action, the black trade unionists placed newspaper advertisements reading, "To support our struggle for democracy and the right to speak, meet, and organize for a democratic, non-racial future." The police cracked down on newspaper coverage of the general strike within the country. But despite this repression, the absence of millions of workers could not be missed. The action was part of labor's crucial role in the struggle to dismantle the apartheid system. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, and follow us on the Twitters at Labor History in 2.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy River City Hash Mondays. We always begin, whether from around the world, along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon, on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 58 degrees Fahrenheit, expecting a high of around 72, which is about what we had yesterday, except over the weekend we had almost a full inch of rain, and that was good. And now we're going to have a bit of a drying out period, though it may be a bit humid. We'll see how that works. A mix of clouds and sun today, with winds out of the north-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. A few passing clouds overnight with lows in the low 50s, winds out of the north-northeast at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Then overcast tomorrow with highs bumping 80 and winds out of the north-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Confirmed cases of coronavirus in Jackson County in the southern part of Oregon, of course, were updated late Friday and will not be updated again until Wednesday. They've just slowed down all the updates. So looks like we now, just as a reminder, stand at 445,050 confirmed cases, and deceased stands at 544. Grass pollen is rated very high right outside the window in Rogue River proper. The air quality index for the region remains in the good range at 26 parts per million, and that daytime UV index is very high at level 9. So do take care if you see those numbers in your area. Barometric pressure is rising at 30.11 inches. Visibility is up to 10 miles, and yes, indeed, relative humidity is at a sticky 92%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. London is 63 and mostly cloudy. Paris is 72 and sunny. Rome is 91 and fair with a heat advisory. Kyiv is 76 and partly cloudy. Kabul is 72 and fair. Hong Kong is 83 and fair. Tokyo is 62 and cloudy. Sydney, Australia is 54 degrees and clear. San Francisco, California is 54 degrees and mostly cloudy. And New York, New York is a sweltering 78 degrees Fahrenheit and sunny. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. Jerry Tanner of the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. NATO kicked off nearly a 2-week U.S.-led naval exercise on the Baltic Sea yesterday, Sunday, with more than 7,000 sailors, airmen, and Marines from 16 nations, including 2 aspiring to join the military alliance, Finland and Sweden. The annual Baltops naval exercise, initiated in 1972, is not held in response to any specific threat, wink, wink, but the military alliance said that with both Sweden and Finland participating, NATO is seizing the chance in an unpredictable world to enhance its joint force resilience and strength, and together with the 2 Nordic aspirant nations. Finland and Sweden both have a long history of military non-alignment before their governments decided to apply to join NATO in May, a direct result of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Over the past 2 years, Moscow has repeatedly warned Helsinki and Stockholm against joining the Western military alliance and warned of retaliatory measures if they did. Oh, well, that's going to keep them out of the arms of NATO, eh? Ahead of the naval drill, which involved 45 vessels and 75 aircraft, the top U.S. military official said in Sweden, the host of the Baltops 22 exercise, that it was particularly important for NATO to show support to the governments in Helsinki and Stockholm.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière, la promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle, c'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Associated Press staff bring us this final amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, River City Hash Mondays. Australia said yesterday, Sunday, a Chinese fighter jet carried out dangerous maneuvers, threatening the safety of one of its maritime surveillance planes over the South China Sea and forcing it to return to the base. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said the government expressed concern to China over the May 26 incident, which the Defense Ministry said took place in international airspace where a Chinese J-16 intercepted a P-8A Poseidon surveillance aircraft on routine patrol. Australia and others have sought to block Chinese inroads into the South Pacific, including Beijing signing a security agreement with the Solomon Islands that could result in China stationing troops and ships in the archipelago, which lies less than 1,200 miles from the Australian coast. Last month's incident comes amid increasingly aggressive behavior by the Chinese military in the border areas and at sea, targeting planes, ships, land forces from India, Canada, the United States, and the Philippines. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, but you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up here tomorrow for Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks, and we will meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.